Go ahead and record. Hi, Paul. Also, this is my co-founder, Paul, as well.
Hey, Paul.
Hello, I'll come on camera real quick so I'm not a ghost. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. It's my Friday, so it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, I guess.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into your question. I think you may have described it a little, or maybe that wasn't you. But
Let me see. It's been a while since I submitted the form, so let me look back at my event if I had. Oh, it doesn't show on the calendar what it was.
So I actually have it here. If you want me to read it out, that might make it easier.
Perfect.
So hey, Emily.
Hello,
Joyful Jobs.
Yeah.
Joyful Jobs is your company. I love that name, by the way. It's very kind of like, woo.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted it to be catchy.
How did you come up with that name?
Several reasons, but to summarize it, basically, like, I want people to find joy in their work, and I find joy helping find the right match between an employer and a candidate. And there's a Bible verse about finding joy in your work that I like as well. So they kind of all three went together.
Love it.
oh my
Love
goodness,
it.
we are like soul sisters. I love it.
It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
and so
Okay, so your question was a go-to-market related question. Struggling to gain traction with new services and create and deploy a full marketing plan as a solopreneur. Congrats to you on a solopreneur as well. It's not easy, this journey, especially if you're doing it on your own.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and it's like my own business. I started it from the ground up, so I bootstrapped it and everything. And so when you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to dip into and hire people and scale up quickly, I feel like the burden is all on me to do everything.
So Kara, do you want to take this?
Yeah. Okay, so how long ago did you start? I guess we can start there.
Yeah, so I started almost 2 years ago now, summer of 2021. Yeah, I was able to get off the ground fairly quickly. Luckily, I found I mostly started by networking with my existing contacts and got a couple of clients out of that right away, and met some, important people locally that connected me with clients. And so I got a pretty fast start and had a really good 2022. And then this year, I think mainly it was because I didn't really have a lot of formal marketing in place. I was just relying on the referrals and word of mouth. And at the beginning of the year, things just really slowed down. And I always kind of knew in the back of my head that was a risk. And because I was so busy working on the business, I didn't spend enough time last year so busy working in the business, I didn't spend enough time last year working on the business. So now I'm paying the consequences and kind of, I don't feel like I'm starting over per se, but putting into place all the systems and processes and marketing and that sort of thing that I knew I needed to do, but it just got pushed to the bottom of my to-do list for way too long.
Yeah, I feel that so strongly. I understand.
Yeah.
So you do have customers, you have a customer base, and are you doing ongoing work for them, or was it kind of one-time services?
Yeah, well, that's another thing that I've been working on, because when I launched, basically my primary service is direct hire placement. So they have an open position, they want a permanent employee. Basically, they partner with me and outsource all of the recruiting piece. So I do the job postings and the initial phone interviews. All they have to do is a couple of final interviews, and usually they're able to make their hire from that point. So that's always been my primary service. And so that's very, it could be, there's busy months and there's slow months, just because it depends on when people need to hire. And so now, again, with the last few months being slower, I've been working on more revenue streams, more like ongoing revenue, or low ticket items to kind of build a funnel and hopefully grow some revenue in the meantime, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, one tip that I can offer you just initially is why, I know you have your other services. I'll get to that in a moment, but for your current one, why are your customers paying you? Like, what's that selling point that they buy from you because of this? Have
Mhm.
you maybe taken the time to have some discovery calls with them to find that out?
Like, why did they choose me, or why are my services valuable to them?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I think I know probably a high level answer for that. I do ask usually for reviews, and obviously I'm very involved with each client. So I'll be talking to them throughout the process, and they'll sometimes, say, oh, this part was really helpful to me or whatever. But that probably could be a good way to dive a little deeper and get some more marketing materials too, with more specific reasons.
Yeah, and also other services can come from that. So
Yeah.
if you understand more in depth, kind of the reason that they're purchasing from you, you can create one-off services on each of those reasons,
Okay.
right?
I'm just taking
And
notes.
also, good, good. Also, it's I also have this recording. I'll share it with you.
Okay,
But
perfect.
another thing is you have reviews, so that's great. What you can do is review those reviews, and look for patterns. Maybe they're using some similar phrases and similar wording, and you can begin to kind of use that as for your marketing. To say, hey, this is something that I do really well, and just kind of double down on that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So that's my first tip. But then on the other services, I'd love to know what you're thinking of trying.
Yeah. So one thing that goes pretty much very closely with what I'm already doing is temp services. So temp to hire rather than direct hire placement. That one it pretty much is off the ground. Like, I'm ready to take placements. I've been doing quotes, that sort of thing. And then I'm also working on, I would say my next priority is launching an online workshop, probably like a 1-hour training course. I'll sell it for $25 or whatever, where hiring managers or HR managers from my target market can attend and kind of do a deep dive on specific topics in recruiting. So I figure, one, that will, it's a way to get revenue. And then two, it's obviously also a way to hopefully establish myself as an expert and hopefully get more clients through that as well.
Okay, I would like to hear from Cheryl. Cheryl, I know you have some tips because I think you need maybe some sales tactics, and Cheryl is amazing at sales growth strategies. So go for it, Cheryl.
Yeah, so congratulations in doing a lot right? You went to your warm network first. That's always the way to go, right? And then you grew from there, you got referrals. And so now, you're kind of reaping the reward of being successful right out of the gate, right? So I as I'm listening to you, I'm also thinking maybe associations would be a place to go. So typically you'll want to get to more people faster so that you can actually collapse the time frame on the go-to-market. If there are associations in your local area, it could be HR associations. If you're not up for running around the country doing any type of speaking engagements or anything, you could maybe chime in virtually. That's always a good place. Candidly, LinkedIn is going to be your playground. Yeah. Are you SMB or what you mentioned your target? I should ask what that is.
Oh, yeah. So it's small businesses and nonprofits. Usually they're under 100 employees, often under 50 employees. And usually the roles I recruit for are white collar. So business, admin, finance, marketing, IT, sales, that sort of thing.
Perfect. There was something in what you said that made me think it was the SMB market. So
Yeah.
really, yeah, that's great to know that you know your niche and you can go forward that way. Something else that doesn't always come to the top of the mind, but you likely have something in your unique value proposition around the type of hires you bring in, right? So is there, when you're looking at the secret sauce that Kira mentioned, not so much, not only, you know, what's your UVP out to the decision maker, but what's your UVP around the hires that you're bringing on board? Because there's likely a success rate that might be higher with you than there could be with others. So it's
Right.
that dual-sided. So
Yeah.
I'll pause there and see if you have questions, but in general, my thinking is also create a landscape where you can go after more buyers in the target market through associations and even your local associations. You know, it doesn't have to be hundreds, it could be in the tens, 10, 20, 30
Yeah.
people.
Right. Yeah. And definitely I joined my local chamber of commerce and a BNI group. I just got an invite to go to one of the SHRM groups locally. So stuff like that, I definitely want to capitalize on and, you know, talk about so I'm kind of in the process right now of finalizing one. I don't even have online payment processing set up yet. So that should be done like hopefully by next week. And then I got to figure out my online registration process, you know, like unique Zoom links or that sort of thing. Eventbrite, how am I going to manage those RSVPs? Since people are paying, I obviously don't want them forwarding it to 10 friends. So that's my next step. And then after that, I feel like I can, you know, pick a date and start advertising it. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at currently. If you guys have, I think that's a great advice on the sales side. Does anyone have feedback for me on that? Kind of those technical systems for managing RSVPs or anything like that?
I do this kind of stuff all the time. Try to think about tactics for links. And you said that you're using which systems, which tools again?
System for my marketing or?
Systems for registration.
Oh, yeah. So I don't have that picked yet. I figured I would probably go with Eventbrite and maybe you know, just upgrade my Zoom account to be the larger. I don't know how much that costs, but I figured that would be the easiest since everybody's familiar. But yeah, I just haven't looked into at all what the process is to like safeguard that and make sure that only paying attendees get access.
Okay, so, but you have an audience, right, to market to?
Yes.
You don't necessarily need Eventbrite audience, or were you hoping that they see
Well,
the audience as well?
yeah, I guess I figured more Eventbrite would be more the tool to manage, you know, for people to sign up with. I assume it links to payment processing, but yeah, obviously it's a plus that they would also send it out as a marketing, you know, to their listserv, but that's not the main reason I basically wanted to go with, and I'm totally open to not using Eventbrite, but I figured that's the common one that people use to manage registration.
Yeah, well, you're a solopreneur, so I'm right there with you, understanding that you have a budget, right? So you want to be lean, especially with your software tools can become expensive. And you
Yeah.
just mentioned upgrading your Zoom, it can be expensive. And Eventbrite, if you're not early enough in your advertising on Eventbrite, and I'm not bashing Eventbrite, it may not give you the results that you're looking for.
Okay.
So do you know how you signed up for this event and you signed up on my Calendly.
Yeah, and I do
Um,
use Calendly as well, so I don't know if that is the right way to go or not. I'm fairly tech savvy. I'm familiar with a lot, but it feels like information overload sometimes, or it's like there's so many different ones to choose from, and I don't have time to look into all of them.
okay. Well, I have a paid Calendly, which is not very expensive in my book. I have a paid Calendly, and I use my personal Zoom link. I add that link to Calendly. I uh, I allow for so many spots on this call,
Mhm.
and I am only using Calendly and my personal Zoom link,
Okay.
not using Eventbrite. And
Okay.
the audience is on LinkedIn.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, those are all the tools I'm using currently too, so it's good to know that I could probably just keep doing the same, especially for the first one, kind of see how it goes and adjust after that if it's a big success and I can, I can afford to pay for more tools if I need to. That's good to know.
Yeah, definitely try and keep your software budget as slim as possible, because SaaS tools have low pricing because it's a monthly service and they accumulate fast. But that's the tactic. You don't realize oh, all of these things are coming out of my bank account because they're so small.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, as a solopreneur, I understand. And one more thing before we move to the next question, you're just getting all the goodies because you arrived on time. But you are a solopreneur about to launch into a lot of marketing and working on the business as well as working in the business. And I know that you are already exhausted. So consider, you may not have the budget for paying someone like an assistant
Mhm.
just yet, but what you can begin doing is just delegating smaller tasks. I use Fiverr often,
Mhm.
Fiverr, sometimes Upwork, just to
Yeah.
delegate very small tasks. Um, and just to free up your own schedule.
Mhm.
I think about what things you can delegate, to be able to do that. And then also there are some services for virtual assistants, where you can hire your virtual assistant at a very low cost per hour.
Yeah.
So if you determine I need someone for maybe only 10 hours per week, and then you hire someone at maybe one of these lower cost virtual assistants. I mean, I've seen them for like $3 an hour. I don't
Yeah.
know how people make a living that way, but
Yeah.
you,
Philippines.
yeah,
Yep.
but you could do it,
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I probably
I
need
think,
to try a VA again because I did use one at one point and did not have such a great experience, but I feel like it was, it wasn't really my fault. She ended up ghosting me, but in retrospect, there were some other things that I could have done better to give her more clear directions. And so it was a learning process for me too. So I feel like if I did it again, I could, do a little bit better job on selecting the right person and managing them better. But yeah, VAs are something I've thought about trying again, as long as I can really clearly decide what the responsibilities would be and make sure it made sense for somebody who's not local. Because that was another struggle, is like in my business recruiting, I'm mostly working with local employers, and someone who doesn't live here doesn't know who all the competitors are and that sort of thing that you would want to poach from or whatever. So
yeah, I know that we have more questions, but I'm really enjoying chatting with you. And I have one other tip. When,
okay.
as a founder, in terms of delegating, it can be a struggle because you get really excited when you get someone that could help. So it can be a struggle thinking, what should I delegate to them and what shouldn't I? Um, so really think about this. They are not, they are meant to just take some smaller tasks. They're not necessarily there to do the work that you should do.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so it's a line. And I think, and I'm speaking from experience, just finding yourself in that place of, I have so many things to do. I really wish I could train this person to do it, but not everything is meant for others to do. And you have to be slower to delegate than you'd like to be,
Sure.
often.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Good
Can I-
reminder. Thank you.
Can I drop
Go
one
for
more
it.
thing here? It's a comment, a suggestion and a comment. So the other thing, I have a team member that I work with and I use Loom, Loom, to actually do short videos. And the nice thing about it is it will transcribe and then I can carry it over to creating SOPs for down the road when maybe I'm looking for someone to fill a part-time or a full-time position. It also allows me to share my screen and speak to what the objectives are that I have so that they actually in real time can understand kind of my own IP about how I look for leads and where I want them saved and that kind of thing. So that's just another suggestion. And that's one of those little dings that, for that tool. But I do want to comment just to close this out. On you can clearly hear your growth mindset. And I just wanted to comment on that. I hear you implementing, testing, and adjusting and measuring, which is critical. And I also hear, your conversation about your VA was there may be some things I could do differently. So I just wanted to say kudos to the growth mindset, because I just candidly think that's the platform that we grow from. So kudos.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. In my BNI group, there, like, you fill out this profile and one of the questions is, what's one of your keys to success? And I put on there humility and innovation. Like, I really strongly believe that, and I have a degree in entrepreneurship, so I think that's a lot of where it comes from, but I really strongly believe that you have to learn from people, and you're never the smartest, you shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. And if you are, go find another room so you can learn from other people. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes through loud and clear. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. We have some other questions. And I think you probably gained some insight from those answers also.
Yeah.
And of course, you and I can continue chatting on LinkedIn. So the next question, we can just keep going with the ones that were submitted. So we have a question about marketing efficiency. And the other question is, how do you know what funding is appropriate for your business? So marketing effectively, sorry, not efficiency, marketing effectively. So just, I mean, I could take it, and if anyone else has something, then let's go with that. But effective marketing, well, I'll tell you guys something that I have to relearn every single day myself. I have to relearn this every single day. Marketing is a slow game. It is not, the results do not come as quickly as you would hope. And if you stop being consistent because you think, oh my goodness, this is not working, this is so much work, oh my goodness, then you won't see the result of the hard work that you put in. So you have to be consistent. You have to understand that it's a long game. You have to still stay and continue editing whatever it is you're supposed to edit in the middle of the night. You have to keep doing it because you know that soon you'll have a result. So that's effective marketing, I think, really begins with understanding that it's a long game. Yeah. The other thing that I'd say about marketing is it's not about you. It's about your customer. So if you don't pay attention to how your audience is reacting or engaging with your marketing content, or even maybe before you begin kind of campaign or whatever method you're using, you should do some research. Make sure that the things that you're producing are, you know, kind of try to base them on macro trends to begin with. Base your content on maybe some macro trends. That'll help. If you see that
On
it's
what?
just
Macro, somewhat, macro what?
macro trends.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do you know what that is? I can explain.
Sort of. I mean, I know what those two words mean, but not really together. If you want to elaborate a little bit, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So macro trends are something that is affecting a wide group. And that might be maybe a large industry that it's affecting. It could be something as large as COVID-19. That is a macro trend that affected the whole world. There could be something like the Ukraine war that is affecting a region, but the entire world feels the effect. It could be, it's just really large. It blankets
The
a large
US
trend.
recession or there. Yeah,
There you
that.
go. Yeah. So if you speak about something that a lot of people are speaking about, and you spin that, have a unique spin on that maybe, or relate to it in a different way, maybe, then that already gives you a leg up when you market. You're likely going to get more impressions on whatever tool or you're using because it's a macro trend.
Right.
So that's a good place to start for marketing. Does anyone else have a comment on just effective marketing?
Yeah, I'm likely going to jumble this up, but it has to do with the efficiency effectiveness term, right? So at the end of the day, it's literally looking for ways to increase the return on the marketing and decrease the cost of the marketing, right? So as Kira's talking about macro trends, that's like a really good way, right? And putting your stake in the sand or your line in the sand about what you believe. In addition to like any associations you go to, it could be, and I'll just give you an example, this wouldn't necessarily be for your space, but it could be that everyone else is charging an upfront fee, but your model is different and you charge a back-end fee, right? And that's just kind of a general business model example. And then you give the reasons why. And so it helps you meet your buyer where they are. And you become kind of like, what is it? The red fish in the blue sea or something like that. Yeah. So you're actually showing that your natural lane is very different than others. So literally, finding a way to increase the return on the marketing and decrease the value so that your customer acquisition cost becomes lower and you get more of a return.
That actually is a great point, because one of the things that I do differently, and I tell clients this, like as I'm pitching a prospect, but it's just what you said made me think, oh, why don't I write a LinkedIn post about that? Most recruiters, they charge a percentage of the salary, and I don't do it that way. I do a flat fee depending on the level of position. But the reason I do that is, one, it helps my clients budget better. They know exactly what they're going to pay me regardless of what they pay the candidate. And two, I feel like it's more ethical, because if I'm coaching a candidate behind the scenes to ask for more money, guess what? I make more money too. So that's why I don't do it that way. That's why I do the flat fee. So I could do a post about that.
100%. Like that is you being the red in the blue sea, 100%. And I can tell you feel passionately about it on top of that. So
And it's like a nice way to pitch my company and market it, but not like a hard sell, more of also educational, and people like relate to it and appreciate it, not just, oh, she's trying to sell me.
Right. And people will end up having that aha moment of just you explaining your UVP, your unique value prop. They'll go, oh, wait, that does make sense. So if they're trying to get them to earn more, that means they make more, right? So I think some buyers in the space likely I'm going to guess most are very savvy, as we all are these days, but there are going to be buyers that maybe haven't considered that, you know, it all clicks together, but the way you're doing it is for a couple reasons. So yeah, that's great. That was a great example.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Awesome.
I love that, Emily, as well, because obviously I'm in the recruitment business as well. So I was going to ask you what your cost model is to kind of make yourself different as well. So, you know, we're different because we focus on the startup space. And one of the biggest things that startups need is help with their critical team, especially their critical foundational team.
Yeah.
We also don't charge a percentage. We prefer to go the RPO route in that sense as well, because, well, our costs are slashed completely. 25% of the direct hire is ridiculous anyway. It's, again,
Yeah.
I agree, it's unethical.
Oh, yeah.
So we try to kind of help the startup, but obviously you have to monetize what you do as well, obviously. But I love that you do that. It's similar to one of the things that we do RPO, because that means that they can get of hires done in a monthly cost, you know,
Yeah.
so that really plays to them. As you probably know as well, RPO can be different things. It can be either the full cycle or it can be sections of it. So some people will just take the sections of it, or they might have a large influx of applicants. But we all know as well, people just sort of see a title and hit apply and spam. So we don't go that route. We maybe have a role on LinkedIn, you know, or whatever. So it's there in the background, but it's not, we hunt, like, you know, in environments where they hang out. For example, we focus a lot on developers, software developers.
Gotcha.
So my time will be spent on the likes of Discord. You know, Discord's a great play area, like engineers, that's where they are, they're nerdy. You know, it's a different platform. It's not easy to navigate, but once you get the hang of the basics of it, it's very easy to navigate then.
You and I think the same. In my previous job before I started my business, I worked for a charter school, and we were hiring, it was growing. So we were hiring several hundred teachers every year. And Arizona, where I am, is like the third worst state for teachers in terms of pay and class sizes and funding per student and all of that. So it's a huge challenge. And yeah, on top of that, we were hiring like 200, a team of 4 of us. We were hiring 200 plus teachers a year. And also like all the support staff and admin staff and principals and office, you know, facilities, all that kind of thing. So we had to think really outside of the box. And what you just said reminded me of, like, way back in the day, we tried Reddit. Like, we tried to recruit on Reddit because it was out of the box and it was what you said, where people hang out. I think that was specifically for like an IT position we were looking for, but yeah, where they hang out, not just where they apply for jobs.
Yeah, exactly. That, you know, have it running in the background, because sometimes you can find those gems, you know, within the applicant system. But and another thing that, you know, the AP, you know, the ATS is not a ghost. It doesn't boot you out just because, you know, it decides it doesn't like you. You know, it's a software that tracks your journey, you know, and if you don't kind of pass those immediate must-haves, for example, some clients are specific to region, or they're not in a place that they can hire people that need sponsorship, et cetera, et cetera. Those would be boot out questions. You know, that's the ghost that boots you out, but it's because you're not qualified in those areas. But as you know as well, a human looks at all those applicants. You know, there's just a screening. Another thing I wanted to suggest as well, Emily, regarding marketing and recruitment. So see your process. For example, when you do your intake call and you ask them what they need and you go through all that to kind of, you know, advise them on what they should be looking for and, you know, different strategies. If you have, like, you can create lots of short PDFs around your system without giving away the juice. You know, there's still, it's kind of like give that peek into, okay, this lady knows what she's talking about. Let's hop on a call and elaborate on that. So you could really put on effective hiring strategy, or should you avoid, or, like when you're hiring talent and you have specifications on what college they went to, or, the highest of the diploma, et cetera, there's ways around that. It's kind of like, should you hire for academics? Should you hire for characteristics? Should you hire for X, Y, Z? You know, all the different levels,
Yeah.
and again, show an insight as to what will it be like to work with Emily when that, client is looking at your post and they're like, okay, I like the way she thinks, you know, try to, I can never say this word, differentiate. Oh, I got it. I actually got the word. I can usually never say it. But kind of little things like that to do posts. I would advise against some. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But we're all very savvy nowadays, and we know when you're asked to download something and give your email that there's a lot of spam out there. I try to avoid that. So give that freebie first, because if they like what they see, they're going to reach out to you anyway. You don't have to spam them on an email.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you for those tips.
You're welcome.
You're muted, Kiara.
That was helpful. Thank you. Thank you. I would have
How are your lips
kept on
moving?
talking. Yeah. Okay. The next question is, how do I know what funding is appropriate for my business? So Paul will be great for answering that question. We've been talking about funding a lot on these calls, but go for it, Paul.
So I think, you have to first kind of look at what your business model is, right? If at all possible, can you scale lean? I think that's always the question to ask. Obviously, like I have a startup that we're considering for my VC fund. They're manufacturing vehicles, so autonomous vehicle technology. And they're actually like building like hover vehicles, like these vehicles float above ground. They've already got contracts with like the Department of Transportation and so forth, but they're manufacturing, right? So it's going to be impossible for, unless they come from a trust fund or something, it's going to be next to impossible for them to scale without some sort of injection of capital. Right. So, but if you're a SaaS-based startup, if you're a virtual startup, you can scale for a long time. You can grow for a long time purely by bootstrapping. So I would look at the business model, and then I would look at what the current market conditions are right now. People are keeping their money close to their chest. Given some of the recent things that have gone on over the past year with banking collapses and so forth. So there's not quite as much investment happening these days. So I would suggest, given the current market conditions, is to really think about your product in a 15 to 20 year kind of time frame. Is this going to be around, for 15 to 20 years? Like, what are the barriers to entry and so forth? Asking those kind of questions are going to be, they're going to be helpful for you to be successful with equity-based investors. So I'm talking about like venture capitals, angel investors, and so forth, because people are not putting their personal money into things. Organizations are not putting capital into things that are not sustainable for 15 to 20 years, right? So is it improving our lives? Is it helping the environment? That's what I mean by impact. So like from an ESG standpoint, I think those things are important to look at, because otherwise, if the barriers to entry aren't there, if the technology or the business isn't patentable, if it's not solving a demonstrable problem that is an unsolved challenge that we all face collectively as a society. If it's not, any of those things, then it's going to be really hard to achieve equity-based funding. Additionally, look at the competition. Competition's not always a bad thing, but there is a balance there between having, I'll give you an example. I came across one of my family office contacts sent me a startup the other day, purely for my amusement. But this person is building a business around excavating water from planets that we have that like from the outer reaches of our solar system. Like, so he wants to extract water from Saturn's moon, Enceladus, and he wants to charge $1 billion a gallon of water in space. Like, and we're not even like, we're sending a probe to Saturn, like I think around 2028. But like, I mean, that technology is so unreasonable, like given the needs of the market and like kind of as Kiara said, the macro trends that are taking place, like nobody's going to put their money in that. I mean, an investor's not going to see their money returned for like 20 years at least. So, I would just say be reasonable, kind of balance between first mover advantage and existing competition. Like that guy has no competition, but that's, in his case, that's kind of a bad thing. You do want some competition, but you do want to build a product that's unique enough to the point where you do obtain and you do hold some sort of first mover advantage. Another statistic is around, I believe it's around 70 to 75% of companies that have patents are more likely to get funded. So 70 to 75% of companies that get funded have some sort of patent behind them. So, I would look at those things: barriers to entry, impact, lifetime potential of the product and the business. That's where you're going to have success with equity-based investors. The other way is through revenue-based financing, traditional bank loans, but even there, that can be harder if you're an earlier stage startup, because then there's no emotion in that, right? With equity-based investors, there's emotion in the deal, right? Yeah. But with banks, it's so transactional.
It's all about the numbers.
Yeah. What's your credit score? How much revenue do you have? How long have you been in the business? So you're still going to have to bootstrap to a certain point. And there's much less flexibility there, because they give you terms and they say the banks, there's very little flexibility. So if you take out a loan or a line of credit, they want their money when they want it back. And if they put a lien on your business, that can have a negative ripple effect. With equity investors, there's more flexibility there. They're willing to work with you on some things, and they probably have more resources depending on where you're at and what challenges you're up against to kind of help you get through things. Right. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, it's funny you say all that, because my gut feel, like, I mean, I'm not afraid of debt. We have a mortgage and car loans, but other than that, I don't have personal debt, and I like to stay away from debt as much as possible. So like, I don't really want to take out a loan or, have investors in the business. But I really was more curious on the opposite end, like, is that a smart decision? Should I actually be considering those things? Because sometimes, doing those things isn't bad. I think it all depends on what your goals and objectives are. Yep. And like, so that's something I've kind of been thinking about closely, is like, some people, they want to achieve 5 million in 2 years or whatever. Like that is not my
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, it does depend on what your goals are. I mean, if you're looking to get, capital into your business and scale as rapidly and quickly as possible, and you're willing to take that risk of giving up your kind of, your dream, so to giving up part of your dream, so to speak, then you go after equity. I mean, if you get 10 to 20 million of cash into your business, you can potentially maybe get to 100 million a lot quicker, and maybe at that point you only own 20% of your business, but it's 20 million, right? Versus if you get to 100 million and you only own 20%, it's still 20 million. But if you bootstrap and you only get to, let's say, 10 million, but you own 100%, well, your business isn't worth as much, but you own 100% of it. So I would say, kind of what are your goals? Do you want to exit? Everybody doesn't have to be a $10 million business. You can build a business to $500,000 in ARR a year, and then if exit it and go on to do bigger and better things. Exit it at 3 to 4x, and you cash out, and you'll have a buyout situation or some kind of liquidity event.
Yeah, and I think those are all the things that I have a rough idea of where I want to go with it in the future, but I haven't exactly nailed down, like, in 3 years X, in 5 years this, in 10 years that. So yeah, it's that's good food for thought, though. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Cool. Cool. We have a couple more minutes left, and I think this is a good question for us to maybe wrap up on. So this is a go-to-market strategy question. It's how can we optimize our resources to execute a successful go-to-market strategy? And are there areas where we can outsource or automate certain tasks to free up time and focus on high priority activities? So the second part of the question, we've already kind of touched on a little bit about outsourcing and delegating. But optimizing your resources to execute a go-to-market strategy. First off, it'd be very cool if we had this person here so that they could tell us a little bit more about what they're doing, and we can give some really specific answers. But I'd say in terms of go-to-market strategy, it really does depend upon your customer. As a matter of fact, your whole strategy depends upon your customer, right? You want to make sure. I don't know who it was, maybe on our last call, that made a comment about being customer driven. That was Cheryl, I believe. You want to make certain that your customer is at the center of your go-to-market strategy, and that you are talking to them a lot. You want their feedback. When you think of go-to-market, you should think of that as, I'm about to invest a lot of money and time into a strategy. And that is definitely not smart to do that if you don't have very clear, if you don't know very clearly, this is my customer's pain point, and this is what I know they will pay for over and over again. I can actually throw more money at this, and I can reach my audience. I can reach more people like this. That's what I mean in terms of your audience, by doing this, these few actions. So it really is, it is a strategy, right? But you have to be very lean. You have to be very calculated in terms of who your customer is. And that just is based upon your data. So, in the same way that you consider, what are, as we were talking about earlier, what are the best marketing strategies, or how to be effective with marketing, go to market, which is kind of the strategy I'm going all in on. You want to be very, you want to have no doubt in your mind of this is the right lane. This is how I'm going to approach it. And then you can know how to allocate your resources. And I have one more thing, and I'll let everyone else chime in because I know you guys have good things. Just in terms of outsourcing and automating tasks to free up to see what's high priority. Again, I just want to say again, be careful about the tasks that you delegate. If you're very early, this is just a specific answer. If you're very early, then and you're like, okay, I don't want to check my emails, or I don't want to do customer support work or things like that. That is actually where you get the gold. You get the good stuff by hearing what your customers complain about, or by hearing the things that they're having a difficult time with. That actually fuels your marketing. So if you avoid customer support and you say, I want to outsource this, or even your marketing, if you, in the very beginning, if you don't do some marketing yourself, you won't know how to market to your customer. You won't know how they respond. So if you pay, for instance, and I can say this, I own a web agency. So I market for other people, and I would not advise customers to pay me, to pay my my team to market if they don't know their own strategy themselves. Because yes, I can have a bunch of tactics and I have a whole bag of tricks, but I don't know your customer like you do. So, or you should. So definitely you want to do a lot of those initial tasks yourself so that you can feel confident about how you're going to market. Does anyone else have anything on those two questions? So optimizing resources for go-to-market and outsourcing and automating tasks to free up your time. For anyone else?
I'll add quickly, as you're looking at your customer, target audience, all of the things, really just understanding the journey that you want them to come through, right? Where are the touch points? Which ones are human and which ones can be automated? And so, for example, if you want to give them a white glove feel, that might look a certain way versus, I always use the example of, Target, Costco, and Walmart. Similar types of stores, completely different ways they go to market. When I used to call on Costco, they were literally offended if you put Walmart in the same category as them, because that they are not that type of buyer in the market. That's not the way they go to market. So just the customer journey, what you want it to look and feel like. And when Kira asked the question, I wrote down outcome. So what is the outcome you want your customer to have, including how they feel about it, what they would say about you when they refer you. And as Kira pointed out, what are some of the challenges that they had that you likely overcame, but they were transparent enough to tell you about them.
Yeah, that's really good too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Kelly or Paul, you guys have anything on this? Or did you have another question you guys were wanting to answer before we wrap up?
No, I'm all good on the go-to-market. Apologies, my network is really bad today, so I've had to take the video off as well, and the audio. Sometimes it sounds like I'm watching a movie called Doctor Who. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Doctor Who, but they've got derelicts that go. So sometimes I'm going to catch little bits of the conversation. I just wanted to ask Emily, as regards to kind of like, because you are a solopreneur, sometimes those kind of admin tasks or research tasks, have you considered using interns for that? Now, again, as Kara touched on as well, interns are exactly that. Even if they've been educated to the health on that subject. They don't have, on the job experience a lot of the time. Not all of the time, but a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But things like, for example, doing research on your competitor market. Who are your biggest competitors? What do they do that you can do differently? Model their behavior, but make it your own. Those types of really time-consuming, market development and analysis. Have you considered using, people to outsource those kind of tasks?
So I did have I used it's called Ripen. It's RIIPEN. Basically, it's a free platform for employers, and professors from universities can post projects on there. And if you match up with a project, you get a team of college students that work on it for the semester. So I have
Yeah,
done
that'd
that for research projects and marketing projects, and that's been helpful. And I recently got approached by a local company that works with high schools, and they offer high school students internships. It's a career and technical education program. So, they're juniors and seniors in high school, but they're going to enter the workforce after they finish the program. So that's something that I'm working on doing for the fall as well. So yeah, I'm trying to find the ways that are affordable outsourcing or free outsourcing, even
Exactly.
better.
Ripen is actually who I was going to suggest to you. That was
Oh,
one
okay.
of the so that's good. We're on par there.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like you have to kind of go through to get the gems. They work in teams a lot of the time. They do individuals as well, but they do a lot of that kind of dig work, that does free up that time for you. So it's like they come back with that report and give you kind of ideas on strategies or what to do next, sort of thing. So it does free up that time. So it's good to see that you are using that. Do utilize that as much as you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you all. I do have to go to another meeting that starts in 1 minute, but this was super helpful, so I appreciate it.
Brilliant. It was
Awesome.
lovely
Awesome.
meeting you, Emily.
Yeah, you all too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.